They were supposed to die quickly. 4 humans, shackled behind humming force fields, knees bruised on alloy floors that pulsed with heat. The Tarsari didn't waste resources on prisoners of war, unless they were trying to make a point. Captain Reyna Holt lifted her head slowly. Her left eyebrow was split, a thin rivulet of blood sliding past her temple. She ignored it, eyes scanning the geometry of the alien brig. Standard high-capacity cruiser, volcanic orbit, central atmospheric dampener. She catalogued every detail with quiet precision, then turned her head slightly toward the others. To her right sat Dr. Lynn Park, legs folded neatly under her despite the filth. She was watching the walls, not to admire them, but to calculate weaknesses. The exobiologist's mind never stopped ticking. Her glasses were cracked, her patience wasn't. 2 cells over, Miles Sparky Delgado had taken off his boot and was using it to playfully knock against a glowing energy panel, as though it were a bored game show buzzer. Any second now it's going to open and give me a free smoothie, mango pineapple. Watch, it's going to incinerate your face, Park muttered. Still an upgrade from this lighting. Sparky grinned, flopping the boot back on. Across from him, Zoya Abramova sat cross-legged, hands folded, whispering something under her breath. A mantra, maybe a prayer, maybe both. Her eyes were distant, not in fear, but as if she was listening to something the rest of them couldn't hear. The force field flickered. A Tarsari guard entered. Tall, spined, covered in an iridescent armor that flexed like molten chrome. His face was a blade of ridges and contempt. He strode directly to Reyna and stopped, arms crossed. Behind him, more guards flanked the corridor, each holding rifles fused from crystal and steel. "You will not be ransomed," the lead Tarsari hissed. "Your species' request for ceasefire has been denied. Your embassy, burned." Reyna didn't flinch. She simply blinked slowly. "We figured as much when your goons dragged us out of a peace shuttle." The Tarsari stepped closer, gaze narrowing on the dried blood near her brow. "You bleed easily," he sneered, tilting his head. "Your fluids corrode nothing but sympathy." Sparky chuckled. "You should see what it does to a good suit jacket." The guard hissed in irritation. "Enjoy your final cycles. Your bodies will be fed into atmospheric reprocessors. Ash is more useful than weakness." He turned, armor shimmering. The guards followed. As the force field reactivated, Reyna exhaled through her nose and touched the drying wound. Her fingers came back crimson. Dr. Park leaned forward, studying the floor where Reyna's blood had dripped. "Hold still," she said suddenly. Reyna blinked. "Excuse me? Just stay where you are. Don't wipe anything." Park shuffled forward, eyes locked on a faint, almost imperceptible discoloration forming on the alloy floor where Reyna's blood had landed. A circular halo had appeared in the metal, subtle but wrong, dull gray instead of reflective. Cracked. "What is it?" Zoya asked quietly. Park didn't answer right away. She reached into the lining of her shirt, pulled out a snapped-off fragment of a metal shard, left over from the shuttle explosion, and held it carefully between 2 fingers. Sparky leaned in, eyebrows raised. "Gonna do a blood test? Are we finally learning Reyna's blood type is badass?" "Shut up," Park said, but there was no heat in it. She turned to Reyna. "May I?" Reyna nodded, a shallow prick, another bead of blood. Park gently let it drop onto the fragment of alien alloy. For a beat, nothing happened. Then the metal sizzled. A faint whisper of smoke spiraled into the air. Tiny cracks spider-webbed across the shard. It bent slightly, as if wilting under the weight of something it couldn't understand. The group stared. Zoya's eyes widened. "Is it burning?" Park's voice came out low. "It's oxidizing violently." Sparky whistled. "That's not normal, right?" "Not even remotely." Park's brow furrowed. Their metal is based on a silicate nanolattice reinforced with reactive plasma bonds, designed to resist heat, pressure, radiation. But this, our blood, it's breaking the bond structure apart. On contact because of the iron? Zoya asked. Park shook her head slowly. Maybe something else. Enzymes, salt ratios, pH, some weird human-specific microfactor. Whatever it is, it's toxic to them, to their steel. Reyna stood up slowly, gaze sharpening like a drawn blade. They built this ship assuming we were the softest thing on it. And turns out, Sparky grinned, we're the scariest acid trip they've ever seen. Zoya covered a smile with one hand. Poetic. Reyna turned to Park. Can we replicate it? I need more data, Park said, already examining the floor again. More samples, controlled exposure. But yes, I think we can. Sparky reached into his other boot. I've got a few wires, a thermal loop from the shuttle wreck. If I rig a crude stim... We're not melting through bulkheads, Reyna snapped. Not yet. Her voice softened slightly. We're going to figure out what this is. Then we're going to use it. Intelligently. Like blood ninjas, Sparky said helpfully. Like humans, Zoya corrected, eyes distant again. Park looked up. Give me 2 hours. I can map the chemical profile. You've got one, Reyna said. Then she smiled, for the first time since they'd been captured. Let's teach them what happens when they bleed the wrong species. Dr. Park didn't look like a threat. Tiny, quiet, too calm for a woman reverse engineering alien metallurgy with dried human plasma and a toothbrush handle. But Reyna had seen her under pressure before, on an ice moon when all they had was compressed air, and Lynn Park had figured out how to make breathable atmosphere from anti-freeze vapor and her own stubborn refusal to die. Now she crouched over the scorched patch of cell floor, wristwatch disassembled beside her. Okay, pH 7.4 is the sweet spot. Too basic and it dries up too fast. Too acidic and it loses reactivity. She frowned. Zoya, I need more calcium. Zoya blinked. You want me to drink milk, teeth, spit, anything with calcium ions, break down protein chains faster? Zoya didn't hesitate. She reached into her mouth, pulled out a molar cracked from the shuttle crash, and handed it over like it was a paperclip. Sparky made a face. That is the most romantic thing I've ever seen. Shut up, Reyna and Park said in unison. Using the cracked molar as a makeshift grinder, Park worked quickly. The crew moved with her, Zoya breaking apart the laces from her boots into fibrous strands, Sparky unspooling copper wire from his emergency signal patch and wiring it into a jury-rigged pulse trigger. Reyna kept watch, always watching. This metal eats it fast, Park muttered. A tiny blood smear cuts through 6 millimeters in 30 minutes. Multiply that with focused surface contact. Instant escape route, Sparky said. Reyna knelt. Can you concentrate it? I can braid the bootlace fibers into a crude wick, mix in the blood, keep it saturated. Park hesitated, then looked up. But I'll need more samples. Reyna's gaze didn't flinch. Take it. Minutes later, the cell was silent except for Sparky's quiet tinkering and Park's precise calculations. Reyna stood still, skin pale from the blood drawn, and Zoya was meditating again, if you could call it that. Sparky muttered, I think I figured out how to disable the force field. Want to hear the good news or the weird news? Reyna crossed her arms. Give me both. Good news. It's synchronized to a rotating spectrum. I can overload the node by mimicking a phase jump with this. He held up a glowing crystal shard salvaged from his boot heel. Weird news? It responds to bioelectric pulses, specifically laughter. Probably a tuning quirk. Some species encode resonance through emotion. I laughed earlier. It hiccuped. You're joking. Not this time, he grinned. If I belly laugh hard enough, I might be able to trick it into opening for 6 seconds. Zoya opened one eye. You mean, we're breaking out, with blood and a giggle? Sparky bowed dramatically. Only the finest ingredients. The plan was set. Reyna smeared a final coat of blood and saliva slurry onto the braided lace, which Park had looped through cracks in the cell's floor grid. The steel began corroding instantly, dark tendrils spreading like a poison in time lapse. The scent was sharp, metal and ozone. Sparky cleared his throat theatrically. All right, showtime. He inhaled, summoned every ridiculous moment of his life, especially the one involving a malfunctioning bidet on Mars, and let loose a cackle so wild it bounced off the walls like a drunk hyena on stilts. The force field wobbled, flickered, then snapped. Go! Reyna barked. They poured through the field as if it were an open door. The hallway beyond was dim, unguarded for the moment. Either the Tarsari were overconfident, or no one had ever escaped. Reyna grabbed a pipe from the wall, still warm, likely part of the coolant vent, and handed it to Zoya. Your point. Stay silent. Watch for shimmer drones. Zoya nodded and slid forward like smoke. Park followed with a small pouch of blood-slurry-soaked cord, and Sparky brought up the rear, still laughing to himself. They moved fast, down 2 levels, past steaming ducts and humming control terminals. Reyna kept to shadows. When a drone approached, Park tossed a droplet of blood onto its metal shell. The outer plating corroded so quickly the drone collapsed like a wet leaf in seconds. No alarm tripped. They won't know what's killing their tech, Park whispered. Let's keep it that way, Reyna said. They found the first junction near the ship's gravity core. A single Tarsari guard stood watch, towering, armored, rifle across his chest. He hadn't seen them yet. Zoya didn't hesitate. She moved like a whisper, pipe in hand. As she approached, she murmured something that sounded like a lullaby. The guard turned just as she surged forward and then, crack! His visor shattered. He dropped without a sound. Nighty-night, Zoya whispered. Sparky leaned over the body. Their armor's got those same alloy threads. We melt it down, we get access to their gear. Reyna nodded. Do it. Within minutes, Park had drawn more blood from Reyna and Zoya, carefully applying it to the Tarsari's wrist pad. The gauntlet fizzled, hissed, and fell open like wet cardboard. Sparky took the guts of it and grinned. Wrist trigger, thumb pad. I can loop this into the control deck. Give me 10 minutes and I'll override half their systems. You get 5, Reyna said. Zoya glanced down the next corridor. The stars are screaming, she said softly. Reyna didn't ask. Zoya's instincts were never wrong. The ship trembled just slightly, but enough to suggest something was changing, moving, reacting. They know, Park said. Let's make sure they wish they didn't, Reyna replied. She grabbed the dead Tarsari's rifle. It felt wrong in her hands, top-heavy and smooth like melted bone, but it would do. Next stop, she said, turning toward the lift shaft. The engine room? Reyna's grin was thin and cold. Number their weapons bay. The alien warship wasn't built for humans, which, from a tactical standpoint, made it perfect for sabotage. The corridors curled like a nautilus shell, organic, seamless, and maddeningly disorienting. Every panel glowed with an ambient blue pulse, alive in some way that was more biological than mechanical. Sparky had called it the world's worst esophagus, which earned him a dirty look from Park and a snort from Zoya. They moved fast, guided by the stolen wrist pad Sparky had half-hacked into a map. 2 decks down, he whispered. Weapons bays central. Auto-targeting turrets, long-range plasma funnels, and, hello, something labeled Devourer Array. That can't be good. Let's make sure it never fires, Reyna said flatly. They took a side passage and dropped through a vent. Gravity shifted mid-drop, classic Tarsari design. Park tucked and rolled. Zoya landed like a feather. Sparky hit the ground with a whump. I'm okay, he wheezed. They reached a viewing platform overlooking the weapons core. What they saw made Reyna's gut twist. The Devourer array wasn't a cannon. It was a living thing. Suspended in a fluid tank the size of a swimming pool, it pulsed like a beating heart. Veins of alien alloy wrapped around it, feeding it energy and data. At its center was a cluster of spines, needle-like tendrils, aimed directly at Earth's sector. "What the hell is that?" Zoya breathed. "A biosynthetic weapon," Park said. It's not just tech. It's engineered, grown. Their whole ship is." Sparky whistled. "We're inside a metal squid with a grudge." Park stepped forward. "They probably inject it with commands the same way neurons fire in a brain. If I disrupt the flow of calcium ions or overclock the firing pulses—" Reyna cut her off. "Can we kill it?" Park nodded slowly. "I think so, but not with guns." Zoya cracked her knuckles. "Then we feed it blood." Reyna raised a brow. Zoya shrugged. "It eats energy, right? Let's see what happens when it digests us." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Sparky said, "That might be the most hardcore sentence anyone's ever said wearing pink socks." They formulated a plan. Park would rig the Bloodwick slurry to short-circuit the tank's bioconductive lining. Zoya would disable the internal coolant regulators, ensuring the thing overheated when it began to thrash. Sparky would loop in a feedback loop to pump excess energy back through the system. And Reyna would be the bait. They reached the tank platform without alerting security. Zoya slipped beneath the maintenance valves. Park uncoiled the braided cord. Sparky unzipped a fresh capacitor and muttered equations under his breath. Reyna walked to the edge of the tank. The thing inside sensed her. Its tendrils twitched, then focused on her, centering like a radar dish on a signal. It began to hum, a low, hungry vibration that made the steel around them vibrate. She raised her arm and let the blood run, a clean cut across the palm. Red dripped onto the edge of the tank. The hum deepened. The array leaned toward her. It wanted her. Park whispered, "Now." Zoya kicked the coolant pipe. It hissed and shrieked. Sparky slammed the trigger. The blood hit the fluid. The tank convulsed. Lightning shot through the cables. The Devourer let out a sound, not a scream, not a cry. Something deeper, more primal. A noise like a dying star gurgling its last light. Its tendrils flailed. The alloy around it began to rust, dark red veins spidering across the tank as Park's blood-borne corrosion began eating through. "Give it more!" Reyna shouted. Zoya yanked her sleeve up, jammed her arm into a pipe and punched it open. Fluid and blood surged in together. The Devourer's glow flickered. It shuddered, then ruptured. The tank imploded. Fluid boiled off into mist. The core chamber shook. A voice thundered from the ship's speakers, deep, guttural, furious. "Containment breach. Organic weapon failure. Emergency override engaged." Sparky's grin split his face. "Looks like we upset Squid Daddy." "Move!" Reyna yelled. They bolted. Behind them, the hallway twisted, steel unraveling like wet cloth. Biological systems tore free of control. The ship convulsed. The weapon core was down, but they weren't safe yet. "We need to reach the hangar bay," Park yelled over the chaos. Zoya vaulted a rail. "West wing through the service tunnels." They ran. Doors sealed behind them, organic membranes clamping shut. Sparky fried one open with the last of his capacitor juice. Park laid down another line of slurry cord as they passed, like laying acid mines behind them. Reyna's hand throbbed, her vision blurred, too much blood lost. Didn't matter. They turned a corner and came face to face with a platoon of Tarsari soldiers, 12 of them, armor shimmering, guns raised. The lead one stepped forward, hissed in their language, then noticed the blood leaking from Reyna's hand. He looked down at the floor. Where the first drop touched, his armor melted. One step backward, then two. The others watched in horror as the metal on his legs fizzled. Zoya picked up a ruined shard of Tarsari alloy from the ground, tossed it underhand. It bounced once, then sizzled into blackened slag. Sparky leaned in. You might want to rethink your uniforms, fellas. The soldiers bolted. Park stared wide-eyed. They're afraid of us. No, Reyna corrected, voice cold. They're afraid of what we become when we bleed. The hangar bay loomed ahead, its entrance pulsing with that same alien light, blue-white veins trailing across its surface like capillaries. Inside, the sleek bone-white dropships were already spinning up for launch. They'd expected prisoners, defectors, corpses, not this. Alarms screamed across the ship in a language not made for human throats. Zoya shoved open the emergency hatch with her shoulder and dropped into the gantry walkway. Below, Tarsari soldiers scrambled. Orders were barked, weapons raised, but no one advanced. Not once they saw Reyna. Her blood still dripped from her fingers. The floor hissed beneath her boots. The same metal that had once been impossible to pierce, now withered, bubbled, flaked. Every drop of human blood was a curse on their divine ship. A whisper went through the ranks. One of the aliens screamed and opened fire, not at them, but up, at the ceiling. His gun melted in his hands. They think we're contagious, Sparky murmured in awe. They think we're a virus. No, Park whispered, watching the soldiers retreat. They think we're evolution. Reyna raised her head. And they're right. A flash of motion. One last captain tried to flank them from above, a silent curved blade in hand, shimmering cloak activated. Zoya didn't blink. She threw her blade, a solid toss across the open air. Thunk, straight into the Tarsari's throat. He dropped soundlessly. Sparky groaned. One day I want someone to throw something sharp at me and I want it to miss, just once. Practice harder, Zoya replied, deadpan. They moved toward the nearest shuttle. Park slapped the override console with one blood-stained hand, acidic fingerprint sizzling against the organic interface. The door curled open like a flower. Inside, the controls pulsed with dull light. Sparky climbed into the pilot's nest and blinked. Oh. Wow. This ship is thinking about resisting, but I brought my arguments. He jammed a spike into the neural core. The engines flared. The craft buckled as the hangar bay doors above twisted open with a sound like screaming vines. Outside was war, and fire, and stars. Hold on, Sparky muttered. I'm about to rewrite their flight protocols with profanity. The shuttle screamed into the void, engines roaring, dodging the last of the internal defense cannons. As they broke atmosphere, the alien flagship behind them twitched, and then fractured. Park's timed overload detonated across its underbelly. A pulse of sickening red light bled from within. The Devourer array was gone. The ship's own systems were folding in on themselves, organometallic spires rupturing into ink-dark plumes of debris. Steel peeled like scabs. Fluid arteries burst into boiling mist. A god was dying, and the humans had killed it. Behind them, the Tarsari fleet, so proud, so silent, so superior, opened fire too late. The humans were already gone, streaking toward the edge of the gravity well. Zoya leaned back against the wall of the shuttle, blood still drying on her arm. You think they'll ever forget this? Sparky barked a laugh. They'll be scrubbing our DNA out of their sacred systems for decades. Park nodded slowly, her voice tired but proud. We bled into their technology, into their fear. We gave them a gift. What gift? Reyna asked, still gripping her side. Park smiled, just slightly. Perspective. The shuttle warped into FTL. The stars turned into streaks. Silence wrapped around them like a warm blanket of victory, exhaustion, and something more primal. Reyna turned to face the others. Status? Sparky tapped his side console. All vital signs green except for your blood count, which is very concerning, according to the AI. Park added, We have enough fuel to reach the relay station on the edge of Glisa. Zoya twirled her knife in one hand. I think I cracked a rib. Worth it. Reyna nodded. She let herself sink into the chair beside the pilot's nest, let the weight of what they'd done settle over her. The Tarsari were a species that thought in absolutes, that believed strength was destiny, bloodlines were fate, and their empire was inevitable. But they didn't know humans. Not really. Not the kind who bled for one another. Not the kind who looked at a dead end and laughed while carving a new road with fingernails. Not the kind who turned wounds into weapons. Not the kind who survived by becoming the thing the galaxy never expected. Worse than monsters. Better than gods. Because blood, to humans, was never just weakness. It was memory. It was kin. It was evolution. And sometimes, it was acidic. A week later, deep in the core systems of the Tarsari network, a hacked transmission was playing on repeat. A visual loop, poorly lit, clearly human. Reyna staring into the camera with a fire behind her eyes and a line of blood tracing her jaw. Her words were simple. "You sent monsters to conquer us." She leaned closer. "We became worse ones to come find you." The final frame? The devourer melting from the inside out, human blood sizzling across sacred metal. Alien command centers fell silent. Some watched in horror, some watched in envy. The age of steel had ended. The age of blood had begun.